Welcome to episode 29 of the Triathlon Preview Show. We're back for another exciting weekend of racing.
Hey, everybody.
So this weekend and also next weekend, we have a lot of races. So we'll get right into it. But first, we want to thank Rudy Project for helping sponsor the show. You can get 40% off by using the code TRIPREVIEW on their website. I think it's e-rudy.com.
Yep, and they're having good sales, and they just released a new casual sunglasses. So, take a look.
So we're coming into the thick of the season, really. A bunch of 70.3s, scattered throughout, and then a couple Ironmans basically every weekend. So we've already had two the regional championship for the Ironmans, and everybody's trying to fill in some 70.3s and get racing. So we'll jump into, in the North American circuit, the Raleigh 70.3 first. So Emily's got a little course information on this one.
Yeah, so it's a 2 transition race. So you have to drop your run stuff off and then take a shuttle out to the lake. And it looks like might be non-wetsuit for the age groupers, but I think it'll definitely be non-wetsuit for the pros. Might be raining, but still kind of hot and humid, muggy. Typical. You grew up in that area, so you know what I'm talking about. And then the bike is point to point, and it just heads east the entire way with some rolling hills. And then the run is a 2-loop run, and it has some rolling hills on it as well, but nothing too crazy. I mean, the times last year were relatively fast, even in the high heat and humidity. So people were moving.
Yeah, so there's a little tropical, disturbance going through that area right now, but I'm pretty sure it's further east than Raleigh, so everything should be cleared up by this weekend for the race. So it should be a nice and wet and humid out there.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at the weather and it said, maybe 86 to 90 or something, and then chances of rain, but that's like typical summer. You could have like a downpour for 5 minutes and then it goes away. It's definitely not going to be cold out there. I think that's guaranteed.
Yeah. So let's move on. Let's start with the female list first, actually. So a couple names that pop into my head right away is obviously Meredith Kessler's on the start list. And then we have ITU racer Caitlin Donner is doing her, I'm not sure if this is her first 70.3, but definitely doesn't do 70.3s all the time as an ITU racer. So, what do we think about the start list, Emily?
Well, I mean, last year, Meredith is going to be right near the front out of the swim. There's no Lauren Brandon on the start list. So pretty much I would see Meredith coming out probably with Caitlin. Don't know if Caitlin has the bike chops to stay with Meredith because, Meredith is going to hit it hard off the bike. But last year, Meredith almost got run down by Lauren Barnett. Meredith isn't a huge lover of the heat and humidity, definitely doesn't get that quite so much training in the San Francisco Bay Area. So we'll have to see how she does. And also, I think there was something written like she's had a quote unquote niggly hamstring. So I don't know what the heck that means. So I don't know if that's going to be holding her back at all or if that's disrupted her training. We know she's getting ready for Challenge Roth in 6 to 8 weeks or so now. So we'll see how that goes, but I think she's going to have some people chasing hard from behind. I mean, Laura Sedal is another one. I don't know if 54 Alexandra Tondour, if I'm saying that correctly, if she's racing. She just got second at Lanzarote and was 4th here last year. So she knows the course. So if she comes back, I'm sure she'll be ready to go and just try to forget that she did an Ironman 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, it should be interesting to see actually who lines up on the start line. Kessler should definitely be out near the front the whole day. And like you said, Barnett almost chased her down last year. I'm not sure. Do you know exactly how far behind Barnett was at the finish line?
58. So it was close. So Barnett kind of outbiked her by 20 or so seconds and then outran her by 2 minutes. So you know, it, if Barnett, worked on her swim a little bit and maybe gets a little bit more out of that bike, it could be her day. I think this race this year is going to be a little more lonely. I know last year there were some really strong cyclists kind of in the back. Like I know that Barnett had Melanie McQuaid to ride with, legally, of course. But I think it might be a more lonely day for everyone. I think everyone's going to kind of spread out and be riding on their own. So we'll see if that has an impact on things.
Yeah, and Caitlin Donner should be interesting because of her, ITU swim, and then definitely, a decent runner too. But like you said, we'll have to find out how good she is of a non-drafting cyclist.
Yeah, and I mean, how much is that 56 miles going to take out of her run legs? Does she have the nutrition and hydration down, especially for a hot, humid race? I think she mostly trains in Florida, so she probably has a pretty good idea of what she's doing. But if you screw it up a little bit, you might be fine for the first 9 or 10 miles, and then it kind of goes to shit the last 3 or 4 miles. So we'll have to see. I'm sure she'll be learning, but she's probably someone who's talented and experienced enough that her learning will still net a good result.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of IT racers, obviously, make the jump to 70.3 throughout their seasons, and then also just at the end of their ITU careers. Um, and I would say majority of them have done better than not, probably. So just depends how long it takes her to catch on to the nutrition part and the pacing part and stuff like that, or being alone on the bike.
Yeah, that's true too. I mean, it can be, especially depending on the race, if you can't just all by yourself trying to hurt yourself. I mean, that can be kind of tough too. So I don't know what kind of racer she is and what motivates her, but I'm sure as she races more 70.3s, if that's her plan, we'll get a feel of what is best for her as racing and where, what she kind of needs to go really fast. Lots of training usually works for that.
Yeah. So let's move on to the men's list, and we have bib number one. Every weekend racing, it seems like Matt Russell.
Well,
I
he
just
took
feel
the
like he's on
holiday
every
weekend
start list.
like everybody else. Um, well, he took the holiday weekend off after what, or in the weekend that Ironman Brazil. So he's had 2 weeks off. So he's probably feeling pretty rested. I would say he's probably one of the favorites. I mean, he was second at Texas, and what was he at Chattanooga? Like fourth, I
Top
believe.
five, yes, he was up there.
Yeah. Yeah, and I actually messaged with Taylor Reed today, wanted to make sure that he was racing because he's on some multiple start lists, and he is racing his first race of a 3 weekend stint. He's going to race this, Victoria, and then the big battle of the Canadians at Mont Tremblant in 3 weeks. So we shall see.
Yeah, and then you got Richie Cunningham, and then also further down the start list, you have another ITU racer, Jared is racing. So that will be interesting. I'm thinking this will be his first step up to 70.3 in a long time.
Yeah, I think he might have done Puerto Rico in like 2013 or something. Um, and I don't think he did do badly. So it's just a question of I don't think his training thus far this year has been geared toward this. But I read his blog and he's, has an aggressive schedule. He wants to qualify for 70.3 Worlds. So he's racing this, and then he's on the list next week for Boulder. So we'll see how that goes. And I was also looking at Eric Linkman. He just did this, so I'm wondering how recovered he is from that. Since I mean, I don't know, Matt Russell seems to recover better than everybody else. I think he's just hardened from all the years of racing. So I don't know. Eric hasn't had quite as much experience racing Ironmans as Matt Russell.
Yeah, another person that I'm interested to see is Justin Metzler. He hasn't had a great year this year, and it seemed like last year he had maybe like a little breakout year, a couple good races, top 3, top 5 area. I think he's been kind of quiet this year.
I don't know if he's racing this. He posted after
Mm.
Chattanooga that he was eighth, and then said getting ready for my next race here in Boulder. He's planning on doing the Boulder 70.3. So he seems to be pretty happy with his year, actually. We'll just digress a little bit in saying that he's been racing bigger fields, but he feels like he's doing well against them. Obviously, he needs more experience, but he's pretty happy. I just think maybe he was racing kind of weaker fields, but less deep fields last year. So this has been, St. George was a pretty big field. But anyway, I digress. So I don't know for sure if he's racing. We'll see. You also have that number 3, Domenico Pasulo from Italy. Don't know if he made the trip over, but he's definitely strong. And is Kyle Buckingham as well as on the list. And number 7, Trevor just saw, he was, I think, 4th or 5th last year. So he knows the course, and he, with familiarity comes confidence usually. So he might do well.
Yeah, it should be a interesting start list because a lot of the guys that I would think I would put towards the top have been racing a lot. So it'll be interesting to see how they manage the fatigue, but then also the guys that have a lot of recovery, how they come into the race. And if this is their bigger race, like you said, Taylor Reed's racing like 3 weekends in a row. So I mean, it's just sometimes the last couple miles you're like, well, got a race next weekend, or I mean, like if this was his only race for the next 3 or 4 weeks, and would he put it? He probably put in that extra kick or extra gear towards the last 3 or 4 miles if he's feel like he can catch a person. But now it might be all right. Well, maybe I'll save it just a hair. Never know.
Right. Maybe, I mean, maybe if feels he has it like solidified, like a lot of times it can end up like the last 2 miles, you're 3 minutes down from the guy in front of you, and the guy behind you is a minute and a half back. So nothing's probably going to happen. So you could probably shut it down at that point, and just kind of cool it down and save yourself. Um, I don't think personally, I think if Tyler Reed was in the chance to like catch the guy in front of him, he'd be like, okay, I'm going to catch the guy in front of him. So in front of me. So I, I don't know. We'll see. But who know? I don't know what goes on in people's heads, but he seems like he likes to race. And I think you know, he may probably knows when to dial it back as far as like when it's not going to happen type thing. James Hadley also has had some good, he's been coming on, like he had a good race in Ecuador, and then somewhere else at the beginning of this year, maybe. So he might be someone to look out for, because the list is not quite, it doesn't have quite the big names. So I think someone will win that maybe you don't always see winning, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Do you expect that more in the men's field and the women's field?
Yes. Like I think in the women's field, you're probably looking at like Kessler Barnett, Laura Siddall, if she has a good race. Um, you know, I think you'll see the normal
The
shake out
normal
pretty
girls will
normally on the
be
women's side.
fighting at the end,
Yeah, I think so.
whereas the guys, you could see some surprises.
Yeah, I mean, not total surprises, but like I think Taylor Reed's got a good chance. I mean, Jared could be top 3 if he has a good race. Matt Russell, I mean, he's always going to be in there. Richie Cunningham, he hasn't had the greatest year. Maybe he'll take this one.
All right. Well, let's move over to Europe, and we'll start with the Ironman in Europe. So Ironman France. What about the course first? We'll start off with that information then.
So it's 2 loops in the water, and I believe it should be wetsuit legal for everybody. So you get out and run on the beach for a minute and then get back in. The bike is 1 big loop. It's very hilly. It has 6,000 feet of climbing in it, technical descents, just visualize kind of the coast of the south of France. I'm sure a lot of us have seen it kind of on the tour when they go through there. So that's what it's going to be like: big hills, windy descents, narrow. So it can be a little bit tricky, and people have been known to kind of slide out. And then the run is flat, and it's just a looped course right along the seawall there. So it's flat, and I mean, it can get hot. The sun will probably be out, so it can get a little hot. But there's no kind of terrain to negotiate, but it still hurts.
So as far as the start list, um, the men's list has a lot of names on it. It's 50-ish names, but obviously a lot of them are Europe, so a lot of the names are unfamiliar to myself. But right off the top, we have Frederick Van Leert as bib number 1. And I think, Emily, you mentioned that Michael Raylard is not racing this.
Yeah, he has Epstein-Barr. So just found out about that. So he's going to be out for a bit, and I'm wondering if that kind of like he had a little bit out of character performance at St. George, kind of a lackluster run. So I wonder if that was affecting him already. And Frederick Van Leert is coming back. He just broke his collarbone 4 weeks ago at that race, Challenge Fuerteventura in the Canary Islands. He had a collision with a volunteer on the bike. So he's just coming back from that. So that should be interesting to see how he does. I'm sure his swimming is probably not up to snuff. But I mean, I think he just wants to make sure he's ready for Kona and get out there and get this done. He's raced here before, so he knows it. He just might be a little bit underdone, so to speak.
Which he just needs to validate, obviously. So
Yeah.
he'll be looking to finish no matter what.
Right. And I think he said, like, if my legs are good and I feel good, I'll go for it. If not, I won't. So, I mean, I'm not saying he's just going to walk it in, but, I think he'll be smart. He's a seasoned competitor. Victor Del Corral was second last year. So he's someone to look out for, especially on the run. He hasn't been performing that well lately, so we'll see. And then James Kunama had a bad Ironman South Africa, so I think this is a bit of a, try to get out there and have a good result. And then I was also looking at Bertrand Billard,
Yeah,
number 8. Yeah, he won just recently a 70.3 in France. Did pretty well there. He's kind of solid across all disciplines. He's a thinner guy. He should climb pretty well. So I think he's someone to look out for as well. And then I'm sure there's some French and Stefan Schmid, number 38. He DNF'd. He was third at Chattanooga, and he DNF'd at Brazil a couple weeks ago. So last week. Was that last week? Yeah. So he's starting this week. This is kind of his makeup race.
Yeah, there's obviously
we'll
a lot of Germans, a lot of French on the start list. So it'll be an interesting day. There's always a German that seems to pop up and kill the bike.
Yeah, and I think like someone like Olivier Musso, he's done well at Ironman France before. He's number 16. So he could be up there. I mean, I think it's important to know the course at this race, because then you know the descents, because you could lose a lot of time on the descents, because you could overcook it and end up on your ass, or you could go really slowly down those descents. I'm sure that can be a bit scary. And then number 10, Mikel Blockhart Tito. He just did Ironman Lanzarote, so I don't know if he's going to be racing either. I was going back and forth on Twitter today about how these aren't updated, and I don't know whose fault it is, the athletes or the WTC. I think it's both.
Yeah, I mean, talking about that, you see a couple start lists where the bib numbers are not in order, right? 1 and then 4 and then 6, 7, 8 or something, and other ones like this list It's basically 1 through 50s there, 51 through 70s there, and there's no missing bib numbers. So you're not sure if they're not updating or if athletes aren't sending in their names. So we're going off the best we can by looking at social media and trying to talk to them.
Yep, good old social media. So the women's side, I think it'll kind of be a battle of um, like first off, we can say number 66 and number 68, Frades and Moeller, that neither of them are racing. They just did Brazil. And then Tyne Holst, number 56, Jen Lanzarote, a couple weeks ago. So she's not racing. And that's all I know for sure as far as not starting.
But besides them, you still have you have Tyne Deckers, Leanda Cave, and then Natasha Bodman down on the list.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be a pretty good battle. I feel like I'm actually would be more interested in watching the female battle than the men's battle in this race.
Yeah, and you know, Tyne Deckers, she is the she's won here 5 times, and she's the course record holder. So she knows it pretty well. And she didn't race last year. Maybe it was injured or something, but she had a pretty good start at Puerto Rico. She took down Sarah Haskins and quite handily on the bike. So this kind of bike course is going to suit her strength. And then there's also number 69, Emma Billum. This is, I believe, her first pro Ironman. I think she's done them as an amateur, but she's training with Sutto, and she just won 70.3 Barcelona a couple of weeks ago. So she might be someone who's a bit of a dark horse, but could end up near the top. And then Leanda Cave is coming back after her bib number fiasco a couple of years ago. Do you remember that?
No, I don't. No, I don't remember that.
No, so they had a rule, and I don't know if they still do.
I think
You
I do
have to wear
now.
your bib number on the bike. And she didn't put it on and tried to go back and get it or something, but she was DQ'd because you can't be on the bike course without the bib number. And so it was like a big debacle as far as, you know, getting validated and everything. And she ended up having to do like Ironman Sweden because she wasn't on any other lists or you know, whatever. So it was kind of a shit show. And now she's back, and I'm sure if there's a rule that you have to have your bib number on the bike, she will not forget.
Yeah, actually, I think that's pretty standard in European races that you have to wear your bib number on the bike, which is not the case in
Oh,
North
really?
America. Pretty
Yeah,
sure
I
I've
mean,
seen that.
the only race here in North America I know for sure is California, Oceanside to go in Camp Pendleton. But yeah, and I mean, other people, there's a couple US athletes. You have Erin Spittler, who did pretty well last year at Cozumel. So she's a good cyclist runner. Her swim is a little weak. And then Karen Thibodeau from Canada is a good swimmer. So expect her to be near the front. And we'll see. You know, she did well at Whistler a couple years ago. So we'll see if she's kind of regained that form. I'm also looking at this list again. I wonder if number 54, Caroline Levency, she just did Lanzarote too. I wonder if she's going to start. So there's just a lot of question marks as far as who's starting. But
Yeah,
I mean, I know like Leslie Miller's there. So it gets a little dicey.
it's just that time of the year that forever, whatever reason, people put their names on a lot of start lists, and whichever race they show up is whichever race they show up because of whatever reasons they
Yeah.
choose to. Injury, other start lists, not sure.
Yeah. And I thought like Natasha Bodman was on another list this weekend, but maybe not. But
Well, we'll
I mean,
find
yeah.
out because we're about to go over the other ones anyways too. So
Yeah,
refresh our
that's true.
memories.
Yeah, I don't think she is. I'd be speaking. Yeah, I think she's just on this list. So, um, she's always someone to look out for, and it's a cycling heavy race with a tough course. So she's could do well. I mean, awesome. I mean, she's 47, so way to go.
All right, let's move on to we'll go with the Germany 70.3 with the city that I cannot pronounce. Um, we'll start
Yes.
there.
Okay, so Sebastian Kienle is racing.
Yeah, I mean,
Again.
actually, the men's race is actually they have some names at the top. So you got Kinley, Borstein, Boss, Nils Fromhold, Pierre Bittner. So I mean, right off the top, there's definitely a couple names that at least I recognize. And then the rest of the list is just filled with Germans. So
Yeah.
I would expect some to be there and some not to be there.
Yeah. And I mean, I think Sebastian's got to be getting pretty fit because he's getting ready for Ironman Frankfurt at the beginning of July. So I wonder if this is his last big race and then he's going to have a few solid weeks of Ironman training and then head to Frankfurt. I mean, he's been doing pretty well. So, second at St. George, one Chattanooga. So we'll see if he's recovered from the travel and his stint in North America. Boris Stein, top 10 at Kona last year, and Boss Dieterden, he always does pretty well, strong, and he's probably getting ready for Frankfurt. He usually races that quite often, so he's probably fit. Maurice Clavel, he is strong. He was second at that 70.3 in France at the beginning of May. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely some good names there.
We'll have to
And
see how
the
Nils.
course is
We'll have to see how
go
Nils
ahead.
responds from the DNF at Texas.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, if he DNF soon enough and he was able to get some recovery, I mean, did he even make it that far in the run? That's kind of what breaks you down the worst.
No, I don't even know if he started the run. I know he was in the penalty tent right before T2, and I think he
Okay.
he might have like got on the run, but I think he called it pretty early because he was like, "Look, I mean, like I'm too far out. There's too many good runners ahead of me. It's done." I think that's if I remember correctly.
So that might be a blessing in disguise because he just got a good little workout with a hard swim and a bike, and the bike was only 94 miles. So I mean, he probably does time. So he could be fine and ready to go, and he's got a strong swim. So he'll probably be out, at the front. And he might be a little pissed off with his DNF and want to prove something to himself. So I would think he might do pretty well.
And so you're talking about Texas, the Ironman Texas champion females on the list. Julia Yeager's on the list, and then Von Van Leerken is on the list. And then Baranak is on the list.
Yep. And Baranak third last year at 70.3 World, so she's someone to look out for. She's been racing solidly this year, not great. Laura Philippe, number 64, who's also on the Switzerland list. So I don't know where she's racing, but if she's racing in Germany, which would make sense since she's German, she just beat Anya at another 70.3 and is racing really well. And Ricardo Lisk is also a former ITU athlete, and so she's a solid swimmer and has done well in some 70.3. So look out for her too, and we'll see how Julia is doing recovery-wise after her win at Texas.
All right. Well, let's move on to the last 70.3 of the weekend, 70.3 Switzerland. Starting with I guess we'll go with course information again. Anything there that stands out?
No, it'll be a wetsuit swim. It'll be relatively cool. And then the bike is 2 hilly loops, and then the run is, I believe, 3 loops, relatively flat. So, I mean, it looked like, as far as from the results last year, it's a tough race. It's not like a super, super fast race.
So we have for the female start list, we have 70.3 and Ironman champion Daniela Reef is starting. And then we have Nicola Spireg starting the race. So that should be interesting. This would be her, I think, second 70.3 this year, right?
Yeah, is she a confirmed starter?
I don't know if she's a confirmed starter. I just know that she's on the start list.
Yeah, I'm wondering because she's on the start list for this. She's on the start list for Leeds next week, the WTS, and then she's also on the start list for um there's a point three in Italy next week. So who knows what the heck she's racing. But yeah, I think she got second at a recent 70.3 to Laura Philippe. And we all know Seto posted it. She was riding a road bike without race wheels. So there you go.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how dominant Reef will be. In
Yeah,
her,
she won by 18 minutes last year.
yeah. I mean, besides them, like you said, Philippe is on the start list too, but we don't know where she's starting here in Germany. And then Emma Pooley's on the list from Great Britain. So we'll see how she does. And
Yeah, her
as
swim's weak, but she's a good cyclist. So
And then as far as the men, we have a couple people that are on other start lists too. Like Pierre Bittner's on this start list, and he was on the other start list. Niels Fromhold is on this list. He was on the other start list. Um, but the other names like Rudy Wild is on this list. Um, he is definitely a really good bike runner.
yeah, and he is your defending champion. So I would think he'll probably show to defend his title. I'm gonna go out on a limb.
A couple of names that just come off the top of my head is Manuel Kung.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I mean he's pretty good, and then Igor Morello, Milo,
Amarelli.
Amarelli, something like that. He's down. He's on the start list too. It looks like he was a late ad, possibly. So, be interesting to see if he shows up too.
Yeah, because he just DNF'd at Brazil as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, wonder if he just like, okay, screw it, I'll go over to Europe and race. Uh, okay. Makes sense. I would think number 51, Andreas Gegelmeyer. He's a good swimmer. He used to do ITU. So he might be kind of near the front at the beginning. So with Rudy Wild, who is also an ITU guy.
So that's kind of the racing we have this weekend. Kind of just a lot of people are spread out all over the place. Um, it'd definitely be interesting if Ironman maybe cut back both 70.3s in Europe and did one, or and maybe and you'll see next weekend. There's a couple different races, and maybe just force some of the pros to go to the same races. Could create for a more interesting race and deeper start list. Maybe more. I guess, in my perspective, if you have a deeper and better start list, I'm gonna be more interested in that race than having 2 stars over here and 2 stars over here and 50 guys I don't know. And not that saying the 50 guys I don't know aren't good, but I don't know who they are. I have no investment in them.
Yeah, I mean I agree. And a couple years ago, they started cutting back and having races without a pro category. So I think that's good. But like next week, there's 3 races in North America. It's like pool all that money together and have one big one. And you can rotate the year where, one year Boulder will have it, and the next year Victoria, Canada will have it, and the next year Eagleman will have it. And then you'll get a deeper list. And I mean, there's just more races because you have Escape from Alcatraz next week and you have Ironman Cairns. So yeah, people are kind of spread out.
Yeah, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 Ironman races. Ironman and Ironman 70.3 races next weekend over the across the world. Seems like a lot of races, especially when you just talk about the North American. There's like you said, Boulder, Victoria, Eagleman in the North American circuit.
Yeah. Yep. And then
Potentially, I guess if you're really crazy, you could race Boulder and then the next day race Eagleman.
are they on different days?
Boulder's on Saturday, Eagleman's on Sunday.
Yeah, that wouldn't be a good idea.
I mean, come on. I mean, technically, you'd be an Ironman in less than 24 hours.
It sounds worse than doing one all by itself. It's like
Um,
give it time to like settle in.
yeah, and then like you mentioned, we have IT racing back next weekend.
Yeah, leads and the start list we're looking pretty good. I just wonder if they'll stay that way or you'll have some withdrawals. I mean, like Spearig was on the list and Gwen Jorgensen, but I'm wondering if that will actually materialize or if Soto will kind of save that matchup for the Olympic Games.
Maybe that's why she's on the 70.3 list this weekend, because they were waiting to see who was on the ITU list, and they're going to take her off the ITU list so she can race 70.3. Mind games.
I know, mind games. Yep. And it might be the first time. Well, Gomez raced that European Cup, the European Championship last week, but it'll be the first time we're seeing him in a WTS race. Vincent Louis, too. So there's your little preview of our preview.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for joining us for another weekend of exciting races and previewing.
Thanks, everybody.